What if you woke up one day and everything you said and did was out of character for you? You get out of bed and the things you say and the actions of your life are totally different from everything people would expect you to say and do. Jim Valvano was coach of the 1983 national champion North Carolina State men's basketball team. And I remember him telling the story of his first coaching experience. He was hired by Iona College, a small university in upstate New York. Valvano said that even the college's name helped when he was recruiting. He would meet a young high school star and say, "Jim Valvano, Iona College." Yep. Before his first season, Valvano had been invited to the training camp of the Green Bay Packers, and he sat in the locker room as the great Vince Lombardi delivered a motivational speech to his players. "Men," Lombardi said, "men, this is the year there will be 3 priorities in your life, and 3 priorities only. God, your family, and the Green Bay Packers. That is all that will matter to you. God, your family, and the Green Bay Packers." So moved by the speech was Jim Valvano that he went to his home and delivered to his team a speech similar. "Men," he began, "this year you will just have 3 priorities. God, your family, and the Green Bay Packers." The players were shocked and confused. I want to suggest to you this morning that the words of Jesus in today's gospel lesson were just as shocking and confusing for the disciples of Jesus. For 3 years they'd been traveling with him and they thought they knew what he stood for. In fact, they had heard him preach his values time and time again. That love was more important than money, and that people were more valuable than programs, and that forgiveness was more powerful than revenge. But now, in this 12th chapter of Luke, Jesus seems to turn 180 degrees from his character. "You think I have come to bring peace to the world," Jesus begins. "I have not come to bring peace, but division. Because of me, households will be divided. Sons will argue with fathers, daughters will disagree with their mothers, good friends will be at odds with one another, and all because of me." I don't know about you, but if that message doesn't bother you, it sure does me. Because it's different than my perception of what Jesus is, and that he's called people to come together in unity and agreement. One of his names is the Prince of Peace. One of the themes of the first century church is that they will know we are Christians by our love. But now these words from Jesus seem to run contrary to that. Not unity, but division. Not peace, but the sword. I believe that it's basic human nature to want to live at peace and agreement with others, in spite of the fact that the world is filled with so much discord and disagreement. I believe that the majority of us do not want to rock the boat. If you think back to the most enjoyable and fulfilling times in your family, in your life, in your workplace, or even in this church, there will probably be times when everybody was getting along and there was no conflict or division. That's a beautiful thing for all of us. But the problem comes when people seek peace at the expense of principle. When our goal becomes to simply get along, when our goal is just to not to make waves, that often leads to abandoning what we are and what we stand for. Someone once said, "I don't know the secret to success, But the secret to failure is trying to make everybody happy. This truth unfolded at a camp several years ago. A teenage girl was torn between two sets of friends. Some of them were sunbathing on the dock, saying to her, "Stay with us." But her other friends were in a rowboat saying, "No, come with us." There she stood, 1 foot on the dock, 1 foot in the boat. Trying to appease everyone, trying not to decide, she ended up falling in the water. And the worst thing is, she got her hair wet. But I think this is exactly what Jesus is addressing in the gospel lesson today. He is warning us that there will be times when following him will require us to turn away from something else. There will be times in this life when we will be required to say yes to one thing and therefore no to another. And of course, the action we most often take is the same one that girl did on the swimming dock. We try to go in both directions. We try to say yes to it all, and we end up falling in between the seams and being miserable. Now is the choice an easy one? The choice between following the call of Christ and following the call of the world? The choice is usually not an easy one. For one thing, the call of the world looks awfully attractive sometimes, and the call to discipleship can sometimes look rather bland. There's a Bible camp song that went something like this: "Yield not to temptation, although yielding is fun." It is true that yielding can be fun. When Eve was tempted to eat from the tree that God had forbidden, it was because the fruit looked good and exciting and provocative to her. Oh, the rest of the garden was nice too. But frankly, she was tired of salads, lettuce, and celery and asparagus. It was boring. But the fruit of the tree that was forbidden looked so inviting. So she made a choice. Many of us would probably make that same choice. A second factor is that following Christ might require us to change directions, or break promises, or renege on commitments that we have made. You and your business partner are involved in practices that are unethical, and until you decide that you cannot go along in that direction anymore. Your conscience and your faith will simply not allow you to do so. What do? Keep the peace and profit? Or do you become a prophet and say no more? Several years ago, a pastor married a young couple who were very much in love. She a strong Christian, he an unchurched young man who was perfectly willing to let his wife attend church, though he himself would not go. That arrangement worked for a while, and then they had a child. The wife wanted the child to go to church, attend Sunday school, and she wanted to join a mom's group. The unchurched husband had had enough. He laid down the law, and it was a painful time for her as she tried to choose between her husband, to whom she had promised, and her God, to whom she had promised. Every time she came to church after that, she was reminded of Jesus' words. From now on, a family will be divided, 2 against 3, because of me. Finally, I think righteous division happens when being a disciple of Jesus calls us in a different direction from those we love and respect. So I'm wondering about you today. Has your faith ever caused you to make a choice? Have you ever had 1 foot on the boat and 1 foot on the dock and intentionally decided to go in a direction God was calling you instead of another road that appeared exciting or prosperous or provocative? If you have, then you understand exactly why Jesus said what he did. Oh, and regarding the sermon title, Flashing Yellow Lights, when I was a child, we would often vacation in northern Minnesota, where my dad was from. And we'd usually drive there and end up arriving in the dark. I can't tell you by what highway we took, but I have this picture etched in my memory of signs that warned of a fork in the road ahead. These were rumble strips and road markings and announcement signs for a few miles. But when we reached the fork, there was a huge yellow flashing light which divided the highway. One way led to Hibbing, which was our destination. The other way led to Duluth. When my dad came to the flashing light, he decided to go which way to. He had to decide which way to go every time. He had to make the decision which direction to follow. I know from my experiences, Christian life is a lot like that. Every day we are called to make choices, decisions as to which way we will go that day. Sometimes those decisions are costly in terms of money, family, or friendship. If our destination is important to us, we make the correct choice. Not every time, perhaps, but often enough. May God give you wisdom and courage to make those choices in the days ahead. Thanks be to God. Amen.